Supernatural events of the First World War. The Angels of Mons. The Angels of Mons is a popular tale about a group of angels who supposedly protected members of the British Army in the Battle of Mons on the outset of the First World War. On the 22nd to 23rd of August 1914, the first major engagement of the British Expeditionary Force in the First World War occurred at the Battle of Mons. Advancing German forces were thrown back by heavily outnumbered British troops, who suffered heavy casualties in the attack, and being outflanked, were forced into rapid retreat the next day. Just when all appeared lost for the British, something seemingly miraculous then occurred. A British soldier eyewitness account stated, "The roar of the battle died down, and a shout louder than thunder could be heard saying, 'Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!' Beyond the trench there was a long line of shapes, with a shining about them. There were men with bows, and with another shout, a cloud of arrows flew through the air towards the German hosts." Another witness account from a British officer tells how, as they ran on, he became aware of a large company of men with bows and arrows going along with them, and even leading them on against the enemy trenches. When he was talking to a German prisoner, the man asked who the officer was on a great white horse who led them, for although he was such a conspicuous figure, none of the Germans had been able to hit him. The British officer also noted that some of the German dead appeared to have no wounds on them. The tale of Corporal Will Bird. Corporal Will Bird and two of his comrades from the 42nd Battalion of the Canadian Black Watch lay sleeping on the cold floor of a dugout shelter near Vimy Ridge in 1917. Sometime before dawn, the shivering 26-year-old was roused from his slumber by two warm hands on his back. Bird opened his eyes, expecting to see one of his squad mates gently shaking him awake. Instead, he found himself staring into the face of his dead brother Steve. His brother Steve had been killed in action with the British Expeditionary Force in France nearly 2 years earlier. The mysterious apparition never said a single word as it gazed lifelessly into Bird's eyes. His brother then rose and silently walked out of the shelter, but not before beckoning the astonished young soldier to follow. Bird scurried after his lost sibling and trailed the spirit out into no man's land. He continued the pursuit over to a bombed out ruin on the edge of the battlefield. Before he could call out to his brother, the shadowy form disappeared into the darkness and was gone. Overcome with emotion, Bird collapsed amongst the rubble. He finally awoke several hours later and rushed back to his place in the line, but he quickly discovered that his bunker was nothing more than a smoking crater. An enemy shell had slammed into the shelter, killing everyone inside. For the rest of his life, he was convinced that his brother's spirit had intentionally saved his life that night. The Vanishing Norfolks. A military unit created by King Edward VII and known as the 5th Battalion Norfolk Regiment, or more commonly known as the Norfolks, vanished from the face of the earth during World War I. Several hundred men of the 5th Battalion Norfolk Regiment became isolated during the attack on Gallipoli on August 12, 1915. They managed to push the Turks back towards a forest under a storm of heavy enemy artillery fire. They continued into a smoky burning forest, and that was the last anyone would see of them. The battalion never made it back from the forest. Not one returned to tell what happened, nor were their bodies found on the field. They simply disappeared from the face of the earth. The men's families, upon hearing the news, were distraught and confused. They had nothing to console them except just rumours and speculation. The only official statement released was that their loved ones were reported as missing. Years later, in 1965, a former sailor from New Zealand, Frederick Reichardt, revealed a never-heard-before testimony. He claimed to have witnessed the strange disappearance of the 5th Norfolks in 1915. His claim, supported by 3 other veterans, was that on that particular afternoon, they saw a formation of 6 or 8 smoke-shaped clouds that hovered over the area where the Norfolk Battalion were fighting. One of these low-flying clouds descended even lower over the men, and after an hour or so, it rose up and joined the other clouds and sailed off. When the men on the ground could see the forest clearly, there was no sign of the soldiers. Were these stories just the creation of sleep-deprived minds, or the mental damage caused by the horrors of the battlefield?